Good evening and welcome to the final episode of the Making of Gurugram. In episode 1, we explored how land laws and state policy created the city. In episode 2, we saw how leverage, private capital and speed reshaped it. And in episode 3, we examined accountability, collapse and correction. Tonight, in episode 4, we look ahead. The decade from 2020 to 2030 will not be about unchecked expansion. It will be about discipline, delivery, technology and human psychology. This is the decade where the real estate sector will stop being speculative and starts becoming institutional. Today, we have again with us a prominent expert of this domain, Shri R.K. Singh ji. Good evening, sir, and welcome again to this final episode. Why will this decade be fundamentally different from everything that came before? Good evening, and thank you for having me back. Because for the first time, Lalit ji, all safety mechanisms are active at the same time. Regulation is already enforced, courts are actively intervening, banks are cautious, buyers are informed and psychologically changed. Earlier decades allowed excesses to be corrected later. But this decade will not. Mistakes now will have immediate financial, legal, and reputational consequences. So regulation is no longer a phase. No, regulation is now the default operating environment. Frameworks like RERA, escrow norms, insolvency mechanisms, and disclosure requirements are not temporary corrections. They are permanent rules of engagement. Any developer planning for 2030 must assume full compliance. Transparent cash flows and enforceable delivery timelines. The era of launch now, fix later is permanently over. We've also seen a strong judicial stance recently. The Supreme Court in the matter of Supertech stepped in to protect nearly 51,000 families badly affected across 16 stalled projects in NCR. How significant is this? This is extremely significant because it marks a shift in judicial philosophy. Earlier, stalled projects were treated as commercial disputes. Now, courts recognize them as systemic failures affecting households and social stability. The Supreme Court's position sends 3 clear signals. Homebuyers are a protected class, not passive creditors. Prolonged delays are governance failures, not market accidents. And time-bound resolution is non-negotiable. This strengthens confidence in the system and forces accountability across developers, lenders, and regulators alike. This also brings us to subvention schemes, once aggressively promoted. What went wrong? The subvention scheme is a textbook example of financial engineering misused. It was sold as buyer-friendly, bank to pay now, home buyers to pay EMI later. In reality, it became a risk transfer mechanism. Builders used bank money as working capital. Banks relied too heavily on completion assumptions. Buyers unknowingly absorbed delivery risk. When projects stalled, EMIs shifted back to buyers without possession. What got exposed was a builder-bank nexus, where due diligence was diluted for volume. The correction now is decisive. Banks have sharply reduced subvention exposure, underwriting has tightened, and project viability is assessed independently. The lesson is clear. Housing finance cannot replace project finance, and buyers cannot be used as shock absorbers. Some developers entered insolvency and survived. Vatika is now again recently in NCLT. What should the market learn? Vatika's experience under insolvency is just not financial restructuring. It will be strategic and systematic humility. Post-insolvency, the market now distinguishes between developers who learned and recalibrated and developers who resisted correction. In this decade, capital and buyers will support only the former. Third, clear segment focus. Trying to serve everyone will fail. Fourth, recurring revenue. Commercial leasing and income assets act as shock absorbers. Fifth, governance as strategy. Institutional processes replace promoter intuition. What about density? Will past mistakes repeat? Density will continue, but conditionally. Post-2020 density is infrastructure linked, mobility integrated, and enforcement driven. Policies like DDJAY and additional floors will continue to boost it, but with tighter controls, parking enforcement, and area-specific planning. Livability becomes a competitive advantage. You said buyers have fundamentally changed. How? Because economic certainty has reduced. Careers are no longer linear. Incomes are fragmented, startups, gig work, consulting, hybrid jobs. This creates 5 behavioral shifts. Risk aversion over aspiration, utility over status, delayed ownership as strategy, preference for smaller, efficient homes, and mental comfort as value. Delivery certainty matters more than symbolism. Where does AI fit into this future? AI becomes infrastructure, not an add-on. AI will feasibility and demand forecasting, construction monitoring, and cost control. Buyer transparency through dashboards, and asset management via energy and maintenance analytics. So the developers ignoring AI will lose relevance, even with land. What about retail and offices? Traditional retail survives only as experience-led. Offices remain relevant but flexible, hybrid, and decentralized. Developers with leasing expertise will remain resilient. So who wins this decade? Those who deliver certainty in an uncertain world. Those who rely on land appreciation, regulatory arbitrage, or delay tolerance will gradually fade. So this wasn't just a correction, it was a transformation of how cities, consumers, and developers interact. From land laws to leverage, from access to accountability, and now from survival to sustainability. This series has traced not just Gurugram's past, but its future. Thank you, R.K. Singh ji, for helping us unpack this deeply layered decade. This was the Making of Gurugram, Land, Law and Power, Episode 4. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Good evening. Thank you and welcome.